Chapter 611, Fundraising. Daoyuan class students of Team 42 felt tonight was unprecedentedly easy, because most of the people of the sea had lost their combat abilities when they reached them. In fact, most of them had participated in the battle on the first night, and they could feel the pressure building up even with class aptitude geniuses on the front line. Their flying daggers were not as useful in front of their aggressive enemies. And that was why Team 42 were utterly amazed. Lu Shu had not even used his flying dagger yet. In the meantime, Lu Shu darted about in the enemy's formation, holding two tridents in his grip. However, Lu Shu had underestimated them too. To his consternation, they had an endless supply of new forces. Along the defense line of Team 42, the people of the sea rushed ashore one by one, handing their tridents to Lu Shu, and then vaporized into a wisp of smoke. Only 5 hours later, did the first wave of attack end. Exhausted, Lu Shu sat on the stone wall and asked Emo Chenkong, "How long is the night?" "It was almost dawn when we entered." "More students would have been dead if the night dragged on any longer," Emo Chenkong replied. "Now we can only deduce the rough duration of night from the length of daylight. If day and night are equally long, it should be 9 days each." "But only 5 hours has passed so far since nightfall," Lu Shu said, distress all over his face. "Count the number of casualties first. The rest go and have some sleep." Emo Chenkong followed his orders obediently. The 5-hour battle had convinced the entire Team 42 that Lu Shu was a competent leader. Therefore, they were all waiting for Lu Shu's instructions for the next step. 139 minor injuries, 12 major injuries, and 3 deaths, Emo Chenkong reported. His voice went softer as he spoke. Although the wounded could recover sooner or later, the dead could never be brought back alive again. Lu Shu paused before speaking. "Bury the 3 of them. The injured take the priority to rest, and the rest take shifts to guard the defense line. You'll settle that." "How about you?" Emo Chenkong asked. "I'm going to rest on the stone wall." For some reason, it gave people a sense of security when Lu Shu sat on the defense line. In fact, the real purpose of the defense wall was not to bar the people of the sea from entry. After all, a 1-meter wall barrier was almost useless in front of Class C and D enemies. Instead, it was for people to have a peace of mind when they rest in between wartimes, without the threat of tridents that secretly shot out from the sea. In the meantime, the person in charge of the safety island came for a visit. He inquired about the state of casualties in each team and brought all wounded members to a specific place for medical attention. Despite their superhuman healing abilities as practitioners, basic measures such as disinfection must be in place, and some wounds had to be sewn too. Those were all fundamental stuff taught during the military training. Once they learned about the situations at Team 42, one person commented, utterly surprised, "You have so few casualties." "Sorry, that's not what I meant. I'm just surprised that most of your members are safe and sound because almost everyone from other teams has at least some sort of injuries. Yet, for you have more than 300 people and only 3 deaths. That's amazing. I'm not saying you should have more casualties. I'm saying you are a very strong team." Emo Chenkong was displeased with the first sentence, but he was satisfied with the person's explanation afterwards. "We're just lucky to have an expert here. I thought Team 42 has no Class A geniuses?" Emo Chenkong laughed smugly and did not explain further. What if they assigned Lu Shu to somewhere else? Now, the survival of the entire team depended on Lu Shu. How would they allow someone else to take him away casually? Through his peripheral vision, Emo Chenkong shot a glimpse at Lu Shu, who was sitting on the defense line, resting with his eyes shut. When he saw the leader of Team 43 approaching him, Emo Chenkong roared at the expense of exposing the true expert of his team. "Protect the great expert. Don't let Team 43 get any close to him." All his Team 42 members understood at once. It was more like they were preventing Team 43 from stealing their talent away rather than protecting him. All of a sudden, everyone rushed over to surround the intruder. The Team 43 captain, Wang Su, was speechless. "Mo Changkong, am I still your friend? Why do you treat me like this? What happened to our 7 years of friendship?" Mo Changkong smiled. "Wang Su, no matter what, I can't let you take him away." But Wang Su suddenly shouted, "Join our Team 43, great expert. We can raise a fund for you." That idea was Wang Su's. After all, in such situations, money was nothing compared to life, and they surely could gather a lot of fortune via public donations. Mo Changkong's face changed immediately. "Wang Su, do you not remember who carried you to the sick bay when you sprained your ankle during a basketball match? He had his reason to be anxious." Lu Shu's sole weakness was obvious since he had stayed for the $500 he paid as a deposit. Wang Su replied calmly, "I forgot. I can only remember it outside the remains." "Wang Su, don't think your affluence can get you everything. Our great expert is not that kind of person." Chen Zuan sighed and patted Mo Changkong's shoulder. "He is." "Ouch. Let me go, Brother Shu." No one saw when Lu Shu had come behind Chen Zuan, pinching his neck by a layer of skin. Lu Shu loosened his grip and smiled. "The fundraising would be necessary because I'm not leaving Team 42. But I promise you that you will get my help when Team 42's defense line is safe." Wang Su let out a sigh of relief. "In that case, please allow me to convey my gratitude on behalf of my team. However, we won't take back the words regarding the fundraising. Team 43 welcomes you anytime." In fact, Lu Shu would have accepted the money if there had been no deaths in his team. But now, with 3 deaths, how could he have the face to do it? Undeniably, Lu Shu's greatest learning point for the Lopner trip was that there was more freedom overseas. Chapter 6:12, Finding People on the Island. Lu Shu sat alone on the defensive wall and looked at the stars above. He did not know how to spend the night. The most important thing was to find the relic. Finding the relic would relieve everyone from this difficult situation. But the relic was hidden deep in the sea. How should they find it? Lu Shu looked down at the sea. He was becoming restless. He had water-type abilities, thus unlike others, he did not have to worry about problems like breathing and movement. On the contrary, he was at an advantage underwater. Although Lu Shu's use of his water-type abilities was somewhat twisted, this did not affect his combat ability in water. After the people of the sea had been killed, their corpses were not left behind. Even their bronze armor had turned into dust and disappeared. This made Lu Shu somewhat regretful. There were now over 400 tridents in the Seal of Lands. After chaos awakened, it could feed on as many tridents as it wished. But there were not many chances like this. Lu Shu had wanted to reserve more stock for chaos. At first, he had still thought that the bronze armor would be left behind, but that was not the case. The bronze armor was also considered a weapon. It did not make sense if it were left behind. After Lu Shu had collected the tridents, he thought about how to preserve the bronze armor. If his comrades could all wear the armor, there would definitely be fewer injuries, right? The battle had been too intense, thus Lu Shu did not pay attention to the distress points he had earned. But he realized something odd. There were no distress points. Even when he had fought with little fury, he had earned a few distress points. How could he not have earned any distress points from the soldiers of the sea? Wait. Lu Shu saw a few strange names. From Kulala's distress, plus 999. From Kuduowu's distress, plus 1000. These were evidently not normal Chinese names. If there was only one name, then one could say that it was rare. But 2 unusual names had appeared. This was very strange. So the soldiers of the sea had been controlled, like the man-eating lizards? Furthermore, did Kulala and Kuduowu control the rest of the lizards in this area? Lu Shu pondered deeply. So how many more soldiers of the sea like Kulala and Kudwowu are there under the sea? How strong are they? Lu Shu looked at the 1,000 distress points that Kudwowu had provided and thought about it. Under normal circumstances, 1,000 distress points would only be produced during a death, except for special circumstances. He had killed a Class C soldier during the battle. Could that Class C soldier have been Kudwowu? If this was the case, he could conclude that most controllers were of Class C. There was definitely a much stronger figure behind them. Lu Shu did not believe that there was not even a single Class B in this remains. Although this remains was not as big as the Kochang Island remains, but with the development of the magic-rich spiritual qi, there were few remains that did not have Class B creatures. Back then in the Kochang Island remains, Lu Shu had thought that running into Class A's was the norm. But after looking at the information on the Golden Foundation forum, it seemed like the Kochang Island was special because of the presence of the Blood Devil and the Puppet Master. Lu Shu looked at the sea. He decided not to go into the water for now. He felt that he still had to wait for the right opportunity. As the rest of the 42nd Battalion was resting, they saw Lu Shu sitting alone on the defensive wall and felt assured. They had wanted to accompany him, but he did not let them do so. He was waiting for tridents to come. If the others joined him, did they plan on stealing the tridents from him? Lu Shu waited for a few hours, but nothing happened. Lu Shu said to Mo Changkong, "Don't be in a rush to find me. I have something to settle, so I have to walk around the island. I'll come back after I'm done. If any danger or attacks happen, I will rush back immediately. Didn't I say that I'll rush back? Let go of me." Mo Changkong let go of Lu Shu's hand in embarrassment. Ahem, instinct. Brother Shu, where are you going? I'm going to find someone. After Lu Shu finished speaking, he disappeared into the darkness of the island. He was going to find Lu Xiaoyu. Lu Xiaoyu sat on the other side of the island. She was part of the first batch that had arrived. She had been here for 10 days. Her face, which was originally pale and clean, was covered in sweat and soot. Throughout the entire battle, Lu Xiaoyu had been the front line of the 1st Battalion. It was said that one could only determine one's character and the friendship between two people after going through a life-or-death situation. This was biased. This assumed that one was only a good friend or a decent person if one was willing to sacrifice their lives for others. Was it bad to be a little selfish? If you could not sacrifice your life for your friend, does your friendship end? There was no such thing. But as Lu Xiaoyu protected her comrades against the soldiers of the sea, everyone was convinced that this was the same Lu Xiaoyu who brought them into the practice combat. When some of them saw Lu Xiaoyu sitting on the defensive wall, they said, "Xiaoyu, it's too dangerous there. Hurry up and come here. You need to rest too." "I'm fine. You guys have a rest," Lu Xiaoyu said calmly. Lu Xiaoyu did not sleep much, even though she typically loved to sleep and slack off. She was like the goddess of protection on the shore, guarding her territory. She was not selfless. After going through the military training and slowly getting used to it, the kindness from her comrades made Lu Xiaoyu feel that these people could not die for nothing here. Were humans inherently good or bad? There was no definite answer. But one thing was for sure. People could become good. In the eyes of the other girls, Lu Xiaoyu was the strongest Daoyuan class student. She did not complain even though she shouldered such a heavy responsibility. All the people in the 1st Battalion had changed their weapons for a trident. They did not have many people, only 100. As for the leftover tridents, they were all placed near Lu Xiaoyu's feet. This was her request. The other girls had nothing to say. The girls who had cautioned Lu Xiaoyu shook their heads helplessly and returned. She is not willing to take a break. What do we do? Xiaoyu, she is really strong. Then let's accompany her, said one girl. Chapter 6:13, The Strong Lu Xiaoyu. The girls looked at each other helplessly. Someone agreed and all of them stood up to walk to the defensive wall. A group of girls sat in a row on the defensive wall. Lu Xiaoyu laughed. All of you, go take a rest. I'm fine. Someone laughed. We can't let you sit here alone. It's as if we're not good enough. Xiaoyu, how are you so strong? I can't stand it. Lu Xiaoyu smiled, but she did not say anything. Everyone was used to Lu Xiaoyu's behavior. When the neighboring battalion approached Lu Xiaoyu to talk about an alliance, Lu Xiaoyu would not answer. She was not a very sociable person from the start. She had no interest in talking to so many strangers. The girls often said that Lu Xiaoyu was cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. This was because Lu Xiaoyu had often helped them after getting to know them better. But no matter how close you were to Lu Xiaoyu, if she did not feel like talking to anyone, it was best to not force her to talk. Slight autism. This was an angle that Lu Xiaoyu and Lu Shu had never considered before, but it seemed like this was the reality. Lu Xiaoyu and Lu Shu had depended on each other for survival all this time. Thus, their hearts were open only to each other. This was why Lu Shu had never thought that Lu Xiaoyu might have slight autism. Lu Xiaoyu did not care either. In front of Lu Shu, Lu Xiaoyu was normal. Suddenly, someone asked, Xiaoyu, I'm just curious. What do you plan to do with all those tridents? Lu Shu will definitely like them. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes became like crescent moons. He is very greedy. He will definitely be happy with all these weapons. Lu Xiaoyu did not show off too much of her strength this time round. Anthony hid within the stones and soil on the island to ensure its safety, while she had kept Johnson in the black hole. As for the invisible storage equipment, she did not intend to let everyone know of its presence, as Lu Shu had told her before not to do so. Lu Shu, Lu Shu. All you talk about all day is Lu Shu, someone mocked her. Why isn't he here yet? Lu Xiaoyu's expression darkened. I don't know. He has more important things to do. At that moment, they heard a shout behind them. Xiaoyu. Lu Xiaoyu turned around and saw the young man smiling at her under the stars. Lu Xiaoyu, who everyone had praised for her strength, suddenly cried out, "Took you long enough. What have you been doing all this time? I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to escape this crazy place. When I first came here, I was accidentally injured by a soldier of the sea. My wound only healed yesterday. It was so painful. My snacks have run out. Have you brought any?" Her tears flowed down her face like a waterfall. The girls beside her were dumbfounded. What was happening? How did the strong Lu Xiaoyu suddenly become like this? Was this young man Lu Shu? The girls looked at one another in confusion. They did not know who Lu Shu was, but they were growing tired of Lu Xiaoyu's stories about him. They felt that in Lu Xiaoyu's world, Lu Shu was invincible. There was nothing he could not do. Now, they had finally seen Lu Shu. His looks were not bad, but he did not seem as amazing as they had thought. They saw Lu Shu smiling innocently as if there was nothing in the world that could harm him. He seemed very easy to bully. Lu Shu hurriedly wiped Lu Xiaoyu's tears. He had the impression that Lu Xiaoyu rarely cried. There was one time in the orphanage, where Lu Xiaoyu had taken care of him while he had a fever. As she cried, she helped Lu Shu boil water and bring a warm cloth to wipe his face. There was another time where he had almost been intertwined with the water element. And there was this. The previous 2 times, Lu Xiaoyu had cried for him. This time, it was because she felt wronged. She did not want to bear any responsibility, yet she had to protect the lives of so many people. She did not dare to boast to Coral about becoming a heavenly king. When the girls beside Lu Xiaoyu saw her cry, they realized something. Lu Xiaoyu was not as strong as they had thought. She just did not let others see her weakness easily. Lu Xiaoyu could only lower her guard in front of Lu Shu. Lu Shu retrieved a mountain of snacks from the Seal of Lands and put it in front of Lu Xiaoyu. Lu Xiaoyu sat cross-legged and opened a few packs to eat. What about chocolate? Did you bring any? Yes, of course. Lu Shu took out a few boxes of chocolate. Food was banned on the island. The girls enviously looked at Lu Xiaoyu eat. Lu Xiaoyu thought about and pushed half the food to them. You guys eat too. The girls were overjoyed. They did not hold back and took a large heap of snacks. Their liking for her went off the charts. Although they were shocked that Lu Shu seemed to have invisible storage equipment, but now, what was more important than eating? This made Lu Shu's jaw drop. Wasn't this the same Lu Xiaoyu who gave him half a French fry? Lu Xiaoyu glanced at Lu Shu. I want to be a heavenly king. This is the least I should do. Lu Xiaoyu, you are wise. Lu Shu laughed. He had forgotten about the existence of the heavenly kings, but Lu Xiaoyu still remembered. He did not expect Lu Xiaoyu to remember about the position of the heavenly king. When Lu Xiaoyu first wanted to become a heavenly king, Lu Shu thought that she had watched too much Naruto. After all, Uzumaki Naruto wanted to become the Hokage too. Suddenly, 3 tridents emerged from the sea and were aimed at Lu Xiaoyu. It was as if the soldiers of the sea had paid attention to Lu Xiaoyu and attacked her while she let her guard down. They tried to get rid of her. Seeing this, the girls shouted in despair, "Be careful." The moment they spoke, they saw Lu Shu leap forward and catch the 3 tridents. The next moment, Lu Shu hurled the tridents one by one back into the ocean. Soon after, dust floated to the surface of the water and drifted away. The tridents had killed the 3 soldiers of the sea underwater. The Lu Shu then was not an innocent young man, who thought that nothing in the world could harm him. He was an expert who had the qualifications to become a heavenly king. The group of girls looked at him in admiration. This is amazing. As they spoke, they suddenly saw the sea bubble forth. They thought that the soldiers of the sea had come back to launch their counterattack. Instead, they saw the tridents return to Lu Shu's hands. Water-type abilities. Chapter 614, Bronze Armor. Lu Shu, where have you been? Why can I not summon your clone in the remains? Lu Xiaoyu asked as she munched on the snacks. Lu Shu said, surprised, I did not receive any signal like I did last time when you summoned my clones. Is it because the remains and the outside are 2 different worlds? Lu Xiaoyu pondered. Forget it. She had wanted to blame Lu Shu for that, but then realized it was actually the rules of the world that were at fault, not Lu Shu. Other girls sighed with emotion as they looked at Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu. How sweet. That's how a little girl should be like. No wonder she's been talking about Lu Shu all day. Don't you think Lu Shu actually looks quite cute? Someone commented shyly. Cute? I'll rate his looks as average. But I think he's rather pro. Did you not see how he killed the 3 soldiers of the sea? So effortlessly. It's so amazing. Who do you think is stronger, he or those Class A geniuses? I think he's stronger. Just now the first sentence Cheng Qiuqiao said to Lu Xiaoyu was whether she had seen brother Lu Shu. That shows Qiuqiao respects him very much. The analysis was rather sensible. True that. Okay. I've decided that Lu Shu is my idol from now onwards. At this moment, people from other lines of defense suddenly roared fiercely, enemies. But the sea surface in front of Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu was peaceful as usual. Lu Shu leaped tens of meters into the sky for a bird view of the entire safety island. Then he realized there was an ongoing island-wide attack except for the section he and Lu Xiaoyu were at. Lu Shu landed on the ground and said, Xiaoyu, guard the place with them. I have to return to the 42nd Battalion. Lu Xiaoyu did not willfully force Lu Shu to stay. Sure. See you after the battle. Meanwhile, Mo Chenkong retreated with the team as he glanced around in search of Lu Shu. Didn't the great expert promise that he would come back? Why? Has he abandoned us? Rest assured, Chen Zuan said as he fought fearlessly with a trident in his hand, he will come back if he has promised so. Before that, everybody stand behind me to fight the enemies. At this moment, a trident shot from behind like a thunderbolt, swiftly making its way through the 42nd Battalion and accurately stabbing into a fighter of the sea, who was thrown flying backwards under the immense momentum and brought down a few other soldiers as well. Instantly the enemy's formation in the region was disrupted. Mo Chenkong shouted joyfully, "The great expert is here." In a split second, Lu Shu retrieved 2 tridents from his seal of lands and jumped into the air, which made the ground and his shoes shatter into pieces due to the explosion of force. He had landed himself right in the center of the enemy's team. Just when everyone was expecting Lu Shu to stage another killing spree like he did previously, the expert yelled, "Don't kill them directly. I will weaken them and you strip their armor before killing them. Try to keep the armor." Mo Chenkong was confused. Chen Zuan was speechless. What? But they did as instructed. Lu Shu's tridents were swinging in the air, while the rest dragged the light-headed soldiers of the sea into the crowd for a good beating before removing their armor. At that instant, the well-behaved Daoyuan class students suddenly looked like a bunch of perverts. Then they realized in this way the armor would remain after those creatures were stabbed to death. It works. Mo Chenkong was in shock. Bloody hell, it works. Chen Zuan exclaimed, "Brother Shu is so talented in pillaging resources. I'm ashamed." That motivated everyone present. Lu Shu shouted, "Put on the armor and continue the fight." They could discuss what to do with the bronze armor afterwards, but at the current moment it must be utilized to minimize casualties. However, the armor was not removed in one suit. As a result, some people were wearing a bronze vambrace, some wearing a helmet, while others greaves or boots. Although their movement would not be hindered by the weight of the metallic armor, the scene looked kind of odd. Lu Shu's face darkened as he saw how well his team members were obeying his orders. But there was no time to correct them as he had to immobilize even more enemies. In the meantime, a smooth factory line had formed behind him. Lu Shu had expected a disordered situation, but in fact it was very productive and efficient. During the fight, Lu Shu heard someone shouting behind, "I'm short of a chest piece. Who got extra? I need a helmet. Who has it? I have an extra vambrace. Anyone?" Stunned, Lu Shu asked, "What the heck are you doing?" It was not going in the right direction as he had expected. Mo Chenkong and the rest immediately behaved. But soon another person mumbled softly behind, "I'm short of a vambrace. Where's that fella who has an extra vambrace? Stop wasting your bloody time. You'll have everything you need by killing more enemies." Lu Shu roared angrily. Yes. Yes. At the moment the only thing on their mind was to cozy up to Lu Shu. Hence, they would do anything as ordered and try not to piss him off. After merely 2 hours, there were hundreds of fighters in bronze armor in the 42nd Battalion. Nonetheless, some members still had yet to complete their armor set in the fading wave of enemy attack. Lu Shu looked back at the 43rd Battalion. What did the person named Wang Su say? Fundraising? Brothers, let's help the 43rd Battalion. Lu Shu took the lead and dashed towards their line of defense. But Lu Shu seemed to have neglected something. Wang Su almost pissed his pants when he saw so many bronze-armored soldiers swarming towards them. The 42nd Battalion has been wiped out. The enemy's assistance is here. Retreat, everyone. From Wang Zhao's Distress, plus 999. From Chapter 615, Flood of Bronze. Even Lu Shu, who was on the front line, had changed into the bronze armor as protection against potential injuries. Although the people of the sea could barely inflict any fatal harm on him, he would rather not be wounded at all. Seeing that Wang Su's team was retreating in horror and shock, Lu Shu removed his helmet and continued his chase. "Don't run. We are friendly forces." "Wow!" Wang Su exclaimed as Lu Shu revealed his face. From Wang Zhao's distress, plus 199. "Don't be fooled, brothers. They are not enemies." Wang Su quickly shouted, "Our fundraising worked. Hurry up and kill the enemies with the 42nd Battalion." Instantly the morale was boosted. They once doubted the effectiveness of the fundraising, but now it really worked. Under Wang Su's leadership, the 43rd Battalion charged forward, pushing the retreating line of defense back to the coastline. Everyone was in high spirits. Speaking of which, this was an exciting era. It was so many men's dream to fight on the battlefield. Yet, it might not be so for the females because not every girl had the luck to be led by someone like Lu Xiaoyu. At this moment, Wang Su realized something was off. Why did the 42nd Battalion seem less aggressive as before? And how did they get their bronze armor? In the next instant, he was dumbfounded to see how Lu Shu's team members dragged the immobilized fighters of the sea into the crowd and stripped them all. And then, they put on the bronze armor themselves. What kind of weird strategy is that? Wang Su stared in disbelief. No one else had given second thoughts about their armor since it would disappear together with the dead soldiers. Indeed, only Lu Shu could devise such an ingenious idea, and only he was strong enough to allow his team members the time of removing their enemy's armor before they regained their combat abilities. Regardless, the 43rd Battalion was grateful for the 42nd Battalion's help. They would have been doomed when Cheng Qiuqiao and other assistance forces arrived. At this moment, Lu Shu's movement quickened again. Like the god of war, he paralyzed 3 soldiers of the sea in the blink of an eye, looking invincible. Impressive! Wang Su yelled excitedly. The other members of the 43rd Battalion shouted together with him. As they fought on bravely, they also paid attention to the situation at Lu Shu's side. Since the 42nd Battalion could defeat the people of the sea, we can do it too. Wang Su roared buoyantly. Yet, at this very moment, the 42nd Battalion started to retreat. "What the heck? Don't go, my friends!" Wang Su shouted. Each of the 42nd Battalion team members lugged a soldier of the sea by its ankle, returning to their own territory without hesitation. It was because Lu Shu felt that the original fighting strategy was too inefficient, and it would be better to immobilize more enemies in one go for his people to do their own job. As a result, everyone in his team was now clad in a full suit of bronze armor. Not only so, they had more than 10 extra sets. Lu Shu was unsatisfied yet. "Let's go and get more armor. Be careful, everyone. I saw some of the soldiers being hit to death before their armor was removed. Don't let it happen again." The 42nd Battalion suddenly realized that their goal had drifted further and further away from that of the other battalions. Before the 43rd Battalion could figure out a solution, the flood of bronze had returned again, employing the same old techniques. "They are bloody unique on this safety island." Wang Su sighed as Lu Shu led his team away again. The battle lasted for a whole 3 hours. This time, the 43rd Battalion had received useful help, as the intrusion of the 42nd Battalion could always disrupt their enemy's formation to buy them some time. Therefore, after the end of the battle, Wang Su brought his team to convey their gratitude to the 42nd Battalion. Meanwhile, at the line of defense of the 42nd Battalion, everyone was happily chatting. They had not removed their bronze armor, seeming ready to defend against the people of the sea anytime. Beside them piled up hundreds of sets of bronze armor. Lu Shu's eyes brightened up at the sight of Wang Su. "Welcome, Captain Wang. I have a business deal to discuss with you." Wang Su swallowed his saliva nervously. "Let me guess. You are selling your bronze armor." "Smart. Lu Shu was delighted. How convenient it was to negotiate with smart people. He was reluctant to blatantly ask them for money, but selling goods seemed like a viable alternative. 500,000 bucks per set. No bargain, but you can pay using deposit first. How about that? Not expensive at all, right? IOU works too, of course. But only you have the privilege for that. Lu Shu grinned. He had learned from Mo Chenkong that his good friend, Wang Su, was from a rich family. Wang Su knew that it was a reasonable price. Moreover, bronze armor could be used to redeem for cultivation techniques. However, under such tense circumstances, this man had already started his own business. What a big difference. 20 sets. IOU, Wang Su said, clenching his teeth. Lu Shu sighed in distress and talked to Mo Chenkong. I thought he was better than that. Wang Su bit his gum. What did rich people hate the most? When others thought they did not have that much money. 30 sets. Deal. After merely 10 minutes, a few Daoyuan class students clad in bronze armor started advertising for this new way of protection from battalion to battalion. The atmosphere on the safety island appeared to have changed all so suddenly.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.